On this day 15 years ago, as John mentioned, a deadly tornado hit our area, a storm that caused a ton of damage and one that will never be forgotten in Lake Township. And then Chief Meteorologist Chris Vickers is here to help us look back again with more. Chris, so you were working that night. It was on a Saturday night.
It was.
I was on vacation in Florida. I'll tell you about my experience with that from that end in a moment, but give me were you expecting severe weather that night?
We were expecting severe weather, so we had the full staffing in here available and ready to endure storm coverage, but it's something we prepare for, but never hope that we have to actually endure. And knowing that we have a strong tornado, which we did confirm very quickly on radar, and knowing that it was going to be impacting lives and community, we really kind of put our action plan into place very quickly. And this is a tornado that struck, a nocturnal tornado is what we call it. Turned out to be an EF4 tornado that spun for about 15 minutes on the ground.
Were you watching this cell developing as it was coming across? Was it coming from the south to what was the direction?
It basically moves straight from west to east, and we're seeing some of the only known footage of that actual EF4 tornado, and this is some of that security footage. This was a very powerful, wide tornado at 1.400 yards wide, a really tight twister that was spun from about Moline. It actually touched down right around 795 Oregon Road, went through Moline, eventually impacted several buildings, the Lake Township Police and Emergency Dispatch building, also parts of Metcalf Field, and then Lake High School. That was one of the most notable areas of damage. I will never forget not only being in this studio, telling people that lives were in danger and in jeopardy, and being very calm and clear about what they needed to do. We knew that when we had reports that homes were leveled, this was a very serious situation.
At what point on the news that night did you have to go to wall-to-wall coverage? Was it top of the show 11 o'clock, or were you on earlier, or
how that developed? Incredible. We never got to our newscast because at 10:53 is when the tornado warning was issued. So we had 27 minutes of lead time before that tornado actually touched down. We had reports of tornadoes, confirmed tornadoes in Fulton County and over toward Maumee State Forest, and it got close to White House. Parts of Oak Openings were impacted by tornadoes. So we were already in storm mode very quickly. And when that tornado warning did pop for Lucas and Wood County, it again was issued 10:53 p.m. That was 27 minutes before it actually made touchdown. It was on the ground from 11:20 to 11:35, and I will never forget what it looked like after, the morning of. From above, we saw the devastation that I would have expected to see in somewhere like Kansas or Oklahoma, neighborhoods that were twisted and destroyed. And I stood there, Main Street, Millbury, that next morning, and the emotion of people that were picking up the pieces of their lives, I will never forget it. It gives me chills to this day, and we know that families were impacted that day and forever changed.
Yeah, 7 were killed.
7 were killed.
And of course, the families exponentially, because the neighborhoods that were leveled, and of course the school that was wiped out. We were in Florida on vacation. We drove back, and we were come up on 280. We drove by, and I saw the devastation there. I thought, oh, man.
So let me put it in perspective. You said 7 fatalities here. Deadliest tornado in Ohio since May 31st, 1985. That was actually the last F5 tornado. That was the Newton Falls Niles tornado over toward Youngstown. We anticipated this was going to be a major tornado that experienced significant damages, over $100 million in damage. This puts it in lone territory, or at least top of the list, or close to it, for one of the most destructive tornadoes in Ohio history. We're right around number 5 on the list as far as destructive tornadoes in Ohio history, so it's something that we will remember. You saw the video of Lake High School, all right? So that was a Saturday night, as you said. There was expected to be graduation in that high school the very next day. So when we think about how fortunate we were with the timing of this, I know it didn't work out the way we wanted. Lives were lost and impacted. But had it arrived the next day on a busy Sunday afternoon, it could have been a much different story as it devastated.
There were other tornadoes that night?
There were other tornadoes that night. The tornadoes that impacted Fulton County, an EF2 tornado, and also we had a tornado up in Dundee. That actually occurred early in the morning on June 6th. That was rated EF2 as well. And at one point, some of the video here, that was up toward Cabela's. You're going to see that right off of 23. It was 800 yards wide. So it was a night that went well into the next morning. And And actually, at one point, Fermi was actually shut down and put into emergency protocols because of the proximity of that tornado. All total, this was a tornado that did result in 7 fatalities and something that we will never forget as far as coverage. 15 years ago, that EF4 tornado, it was up to 400 yards wide, and it was on the ground. This all occurred in 15 minutes from 11:20 to 11:35. One of 53 tornadoes that night, not here locally, but nationwide. The strongest, though, was that EF4 tornado that occurred right here in Wood in Ottawa County. And it turns out that year, this was the second strongest tornado that occurred anywhere in the United States in the year 2010.
Lives were lost, lives were changed, and we will never forget. Can't believe it's been
Absolutely.
15 years.
15
Chris.
years goes by very quickly. And you know what, Dan? We haven't had a tornado in Ohio that strong since the EF4 tornado. So this one stands in very rare territory. At this point, as time goes on, I'm more inclined to call this one a generational type of tornado with how rare it was and with how strong it was. It goes onto the list with that Niles, Newton Falls tornado, also back toward the Palm Sunday tornado back in the 1960s as well. It's on a very rare list for strong tornadoes in our area.
Chris, thank you for your time. Great analysis there.